And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm delighted to welcome back my friend and yours from New London, Mr. Juan Roman. And Juan,
Marty, thanks for having me.
welcome
Appreciate
back. And we've got a lot of mutual friends and almost family, I would say.
Yes.
Directly family for you. I'm a sliver on the outside, but they treat me like family. The Johnsons.
Right. They say you can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends, and they picked you, and that's a good choice.
And so I was delighted that you were able to come in and join me for the hour. We happened to cross paths. It was last week at Coach Gil Vargas's wake down at Nealon's funeral home. And there's another common bond there, Coach Vargas. I mean,
yes.
Although we have a little bit of age apart, we both played football, and Vargas was just getting started when I was coming into school, and defensive coach, and he worked for Coach Buonicore.
Yeah.
And I was on Coach Buonicore's first team.
Wow, what year was that?
That would have been 1969.
I came a few years after that.
Well, first team. I mean, my last team, because the '68 team I was a freshman.
Okay.
That was Bob Weiss's squad. That was a powerhouse. They were, Reggie Wheeler was a sophomore, and Brennan, and.
I spoke with Coach Weiss this week.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Doing well. I spoke to him. He's 91 years old. And still going strong.
He pops up at a ball game once in a while, just out of nowhere, and you don't have to wind him up to talk. He's a gabber.
I was about to say, always great conversation, great one-liners. He's a good guy.
So, and then he after that squad, Coach Weiss, I believe, went to UConn as an assistant, and I think he had aspirations. I won't say illusions, but aspirations. At the end of that era, to be the next Coach Lombardi. I mean, he
did some good stuff. I mean, obviously, I think your first year I would have been 3 years old, so I didn't know much about that. Actually, I didn't see a New London High School football game until I played in it.
Really?
Yeah, I never played youth football.
I didn't play youth football. My parents wouldn't allow my brother or I to play.
My mother wouldn't let me play either. I had to appeal to my dad's machismo and say, Dad, if I don't play, they're going to say I'm a sissy.
Yeah,
and Dad was like, you're playing.
Yeah. Well, my dad played high school, and he also played college ball. He played at Rutgers, and he was a little guy and an offensive lineman. Of course, the scale of players has changed radically since the late 30s to today.
Since the 80s.
And but he thought that high school football was early enough because it was such a physically challenging sport, and there was a lot of injuries. You didn't need to start when you were 8 or 9 or 10.
You might have been curve. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I mean, besides the physical injuries, I know a lot of kids start to burn out. You know, they've played so long, it's like, okay, I'm done. When they maybe can still play in college, but they're like, you know what, I've played since I was 8 or 9 years old. I'm all set. You know, for me, that wasn't the case. I started playing in high school, had no clue what I was doing, didn't know positions. And Larry Keating, Jimmy Lewis, and Tommy Major, who were our freshman coaches, and went out there and, you know, I tried to be a running back and saw that I had great speed for an offensive lineman, but not for a running back, and then kind of plopped me in the middle of the defense, and it just clicked.
You found a home.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think everybody feels he can be the next Jim Brown or Tom Brady or whatever skill position it is, but the coaches kind of sift you through and you find your place.
And, you know, and it's funny, a lot of times coaches know what they're looking for, obviously. I mean, they should know what they're looking for at positions. You know, even though I don't coach anymore, when I'm walking through the hallways in high school now, I'm like, okay, outside linebacker, nose guard, you know, that's how you think. That's just how it works. You know, I talked to a young man today, he's a freshman, but he had really long arms. I could tell he was young. And I said, hey, how old are you? He's like, 14. I'm like, you like sports? He goes, I love football, but I don't play. I'm like, well, you should try to play.
Why doesn't he play?
I
Did he
think he's
share that with you? Or?
not real confident, but I was like, hey, he goes, I don't think I'm very good. I go, you'll never know unless you try. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, not only that, but you learn, you make mistakes, and you pick yourself up, and you learn.
And your teammates forever, and that's something that there's no price for. Yeah, if you win, that's great. And I know there are people who like, if you don't win a championship, especially nowadays, it's like everything's about the championships. From the pro level to the high school level. If you're not a champion, it doesn't count. But I don't see it that way, because I was fortunate enough to win a state championship, but still those guys are all my buddies, and I didn't win a national championship in college, and I'm as close as I can be with my college teammates still to this day.
Well, and that's evident. I mean, I've been in the environment where you are hanging out with your teammates, and the bond there is, you can just see how strong it is.
Yeah,
I think it's
fortunate.
stronger with your college guys than it is with the high school guys.
I think it probably is, just because, high school, we've known each other growing up, but it's that very controlled environment. Like I said earlier about, picking your friends versus your family. And not that it's a knock, I love my high school teammates. And we got together and we watched some of our seasons from our championship season on DVD, and it was great. But, the college guys, you're there, you're living with them every day, you're eating with them. You're doing things that you don't do with your high school buddies. So you just kind of get to know all the stories. And, of course, all of our wives hate to hear all the stories over and over again. But we love to tell them over and over again. And they always end up being funnier than they were the first time.
Well, it's been long enough now where the wives probably are getting together and they're developing their own stories.
Yeah, but it's always about us. And I know, at least I can speak for my own wife. Somehow, I'm not sure when she got on the books, but she's getting paid to not laugh at any of my jokes nowadays. No matter what I say, I was telling my good friend and his wife just now, I got her to laugh 3 days in a row at jokes, so I'm on a roll right now. We'll see what happens.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that, as I was thinking about what we might want to talk about tonight, after coming from Coach Vargas, as noted, as a young coach, he was a pretty stern, I would almost say kind of a Marine sergeant stern.
Right.
No long hair, no facial hair. You ran, you sprinted, you worked your tail off, and he didn't tolerate sloth.
Not at all.
And that was whether he was the assistant football coach at New London on the defensive side of the ball or his head baseball coach. He was his predecessor as baseball coach at New London was Sal Monte.
Yeah, that's what I heard this weekend. Tommy and Monty was telling me that.
Yeah. And I don't recall much of Sal as a baseball coach. I mean, he's more of one of these kind of a nice guy type of, so I don't know if that carried over on the field or not, to be honest with you.
I never witnessed any of it, but I heard Sal could get a little fiery at times.
I would suspect.
Yeah.
And the contrast, though, between Gil and going back to baseball as head coach, his assistant was Don Callahan.
Yes, great
guy.
Was
a great guy,
yeah.
But Callahan was almost like the exact opposite. He was kind of an easygoing guy.
Back. Mr. Callahan was tremendous. I played baseball my first 3 years of high school. And after we won the state championship in football, I was like, okay, I'm just going to get ready for college football. Looking back on it, I should have finished up my baseball career because you don't get it back.
I was going to ask you, because I didn't know if you played any other sports in high school, but now you've opened up on that because I didn't realize you'd played baseball.
Yes.
What position did you play?
I was an outfielder, played right field. I hit the ball well. It was a field that, it was one of those games that now I understand how much more cerebral it is. I just wasn't, I wasn't as dependent on instant gratification as kids are today. But once I started making tackles, it was like, it's a lot easier hitting people than it is a fastball. So I'll keep doing that, and it worked out. But I, played Little League. I was American League. That's when we had the two leagues.
Yep.
So I was an American League kid. at Bates Woods, and I played Little League, played Babe Ruth. So I played for two great men. John Rubino Sr. was my Little League coach, and Ron Towers was my Babe Ruth coach. Two great people. I almost want to cry talking about them. They're just great guys, and I was from a working poor family, and for them to take a kid that I wasn't on anybody's radar. No one was waiting for Juan Roman to show up. And so they took chances on me, and I ended up doing well. I had to learn how to hit and all that good stuff, but made the all-star teams each year and played in high school. And as I said, just got there and stopped.
Did you play varsity at high school?
Nope. I got to, my junior year I was playing JV, and I had a late birthday, so I was still playing Babe Ruth as a sophomore. And there were some kids that were ahead of me, and that was fine. Like I said, I was more or less doing it because I had always done it, but my passion had become football. So I was into that and just ran with it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, at the high school level, I played baseball 2 years, freshman and junior,
Okay.
and never played varsity. I mean, my sophomore year, I tried the golf team.
Okay.
And my senior year, I went out for baseball, and I was not going to start. Jeff Kirsch was the first baseman.
Yeah.
And it was obvious that I was the second guy. And my father extended an opportunity for me, kind of a graduation present, to go to Norway, where we've got lots of family.
Okay.
Or I could ride the bench for Northern High School, and I opted to take the trip.
Okay.
And I don't think I made a poor choice. I did what I had to do at the time.
Right. And Kirsch was a hell of a ball player.
Yeah, he was good. He was a good hitter, and but I just didn't see myself riding the bench all year. It just was not appealing.
No.
In other sports, had done very well.
Right.
To be coming in on the back end, especially it's the senior year last semester.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of coaches when you were very young that had a big impact on you.
Yeah.
Now, you've played a variety of sports. You've played football at many different levels. I mean, high school, college. You've had head coaches. You've had assistant coaches. You've had position coaches.
Right.
As a player, have any of these individuals stuck with you or had that lasting impact that may linger to today now, where your kids are now grown up and out of college?
Well, obviously, I would jokingly say I can't get rid of this one guy, but Tommy Major and I are great friends. And it's funny, it's kind of like the officer and a gentleman type situation where, Lou Gossett and Jr. and Richard Gere had that love-hate relationship. Tommy Major was so brutal, as a coach. I mean, Gil Vargas didn't have to be the disciplinarian in football. He was that in baseball, but in football, Tommy Major was the guy. He would just be on you, he'd ride you. And he had a method to his madness, but no one knew what it was. It was his madness. And but it was a different era. Tom Major was going to chew you out. He was going to give you a hard time, and you were going to take it or you were going to quit. And kids took it, and kids didn't quit. It's not like today where they're going to go complain about things. And I'm not saying that kids should take abuse. And I'm saying he was abusing, but he would just do crazy things. An example was, one time, double sessions, it's pretty hot out, and Coach Buenacore says, water break. So if you're Coach Buenacore and I'm Tommy and we're back here, he goes, Tommy, water break. He turns around, never said a word to us, said, they don't want any water, Coach. You're like, but again, at that time, in that era, it was just like,
you could do that.
No water, It wasn't like, I'm going to call my mom, or your mom is not sitting in the stands watching practice. And, I know some people would say, well, if you're not doing anything, then why do you mind if parents are sitting there watching? But the one thing I learned in coaching was And I was told this: you don't want to coach a kid who's going to go home and sit across the table from their parents that same night. And I did that. And I remember some parents who thought, oh, my kid should be playing more, should be playing this position. And it's like, trust me, I want to win games. And if your kid is the best player, unless there's a disciplinary issue, your kid's going to be playing. And that's the way it should be. You know, I mean, it should be a meritocracy. You earn it, go do it. And when it's not, it's a terrible thing because it bitters athletes to sports. The kids know if someone's playing a favorite. The kids know that, you know, you're not playing a position or you are playing a position because of something else. And it's not fair even to the kid who's getting that favoritism because the other kids now are salty towards them, you know, so
I've seen locally, at least one out of New London and another who spent time in London a long, long time ago, and then had an opportunity in Waterford in basketball to get run out by parents. Mm. And that's I just shake my head. I mean, how can you have this great coach who's coached college ball here at your school and you're running them out? Yeah.
People would rather lose with their kids on the field than win with your kid on the field. And that's unfortunate, you know? And again, I was blessed to have 3 kids that didn't need dad's help. They went out there, they played on their own merit, they played well, they did what they had to do. So I don't know, maybe I would have felt differently if my kids were like, you know, borderline and I was hoping they were gonna get in, but they did their job, they did it well. And so, but as a coach, I just know, I still, though I will never tell them who it is, I've written down my top offensive team, top defensive team, top special teams guys that I've coached, and it's an unbelievable team. You know, but even then, it's like, who's the best? We've got tons of phenomenal players that have played in the 13 years that I coached. But it was like, okay, I've got to pick one guy at each position. And no one's on both sides of the line of the scrimmage, but because I want to get as many players as possible on there. But it's like, I'd never lose a game with this team, you know, anywhere in the state. And it's just that kind of thing, just put the best guys out there.
Now, is your demarcation line players that you coached?
Yes.
So it didn't go back to to the Tommy Majors or the John Brennans or Dave Connors of the world. And I didn't see any of those players. As I said, I never saw any of those games. But it's the players I coached, not even the players that I played with, not myself, none of them. And I wouldn't be on that team anyways, you know. But it's just a phenomenal thing to do, you know. But again, I don't share it with anyone. I have it in my own house. I don't even tell the players that are on there about it because I don't need anybody moaning and groaning or what about coach? What about, none of that. It's just something I sat down and did one day and it was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This is a very good team. But going back to your earlier question about coaches, so Tommy and I are very close. My college coaches in particular, I'm really close with. My college defensive coordinator, Matt Foster. I mean, I love him. Sal Santorino, who's my linebacker coach, love him. I just had such a great group of coaches. Steve Valenti, our head coach, was Mike McGlinchey, who's passed away. But they were just class guys, Rob Despenne, all those guys. Here in New London, obviously, Coach Bunicor, he was of that generation of where, like you said, there's not a lot of fraternization. It's like you come to practice, he's the coach, you're the players, you do your job, you leave. He was never disrespectful to me. He didn't think I was going to pan out. I do remember that. I asked him when I was in 8th grade, he came to the junior high, and I said, Coach, I want to play football. And he looked at me, and I was skin and bones, and he was like, okay, it was kind of like one of those deals. And in the way that I can prove that no one was counting on me doing anything in high school is look at my number. I was an inside linebacker with number 71. I was like, here's 70, here's a jersey. But, you do what you got to do, you work hard, and I just was a very self-motivated athlete, and I have a hard time with the kids that aren't, because you see these kids who are phenomenal athletes, but they don't have that confidence. So I didn't have any reason to be confident, but I just was like,
I'm going to do this. And the greatest time, I think I may have mentioned to you before, the greatest time I ever had in football was my sophomore year on the scout team. Myself, Dwayne Williams, John Selden, and we were just out there going against, Tommy Williams, Johnny Green, and guys like that, Ray Knott, Chuck McLaughlin. These are grown men, but we went after them. We tried to attack them. Here we are, these little, sophomores. It's like, I think I probably was 155 pounds. But it was like, we're running ISO, you're the tailback, I'm the fullback, you run in there. And that's what I want to see out of athletes. I want to see, just intensity and competitiveness.
I was thinking a big difference between the high school coach and a college coach, and I didn't play for college ball, but is that, as you mentioned, when you started playing football in high school, was the first time you set foot on the field.
Right.
So the coaches are teachers. I mean, they're teaching you the game. They're teaching you a variety of, not just skills, but a whole bunch of stuff. And I hate to assume anything, but when you get to college, that these guys expect that you know certain things, and they shouldn't have to teach you that. They're doing other things.
Well, any coach worth his salt wants to teach you something. And a lot of them want to teach you their system, which is fine. But as you said, in high school, what I saw as a high school coach was I'd rather have a kid who's never played but has ability versus a kid that's played for 5 years and he's doing everything wrong. Because now you have to break all of those bad habits. False steps of a running back. Inside linebackers that stand up when the ball snapped instead of staying down, and just little things where these teach them the right way, and then they'll execute. But when you have to break old habits and then instill the new ones, it's more time. And again, most of the New London kids are very athletic and very talented. So a lot of them have gotten away with doing some stuff wrong, and it's like, why would I change this? Every running back wants to run outside and go down the sideline. Well, you know what? But here's the hole. Bounce it out. You can bounce it out once you get through there, but you're running out here. No one's blocking for you out here. In the youth league, you just outran everybody. But in high school, that might not happen. In college, it's not going to happen. And if you go pro, it's never going to happen. So it's just one, unless you're like a freak. And there are some of them out there, but you need to get some fundamental stuff and get it right. And then, so that was the coaches that I played for. They did great jobs. And Jimmy Lewis, another one, I had a great moment with him my freshman year. As I said, never played before. And we're out on the practice field, and Coach Keating's like, all right, it's too much rain, we're taking it in. And I looked at Coach Lewis and I was like, it's raining? That's how focused I was. That's how intense I was about this as a freshman playing linebacker.
This is Jimmy Lewis.
Yes.
All right. 'Cause, I saw Jimmy Lewis in the store today.
Did you? Yes.
And he just lives around the corner up on Ocean Avenue.
Right. Love seeing him.
He was in my brother's class, so 2 years behind me.
Yeah, but
But he was a receiver, as I recall.
Yes, and he also played at Central after New London, like myself. But I just remember looking at him and I had no clue it was raining. That's so special a moment for me still to this day, because it was like nothing else matters right now other than me learning how to play inside linebacker. And then you had Tommy, yelling and screaming at me, but know where the tight end is, know this. And the little things like that as a player that's advancing, all of a sudden, if okay, they can only do certain things out of certain formations. This guy's been out here all game, now he's here. Well, why is he there? There's a reason, And when you're starting to think things before, and even as a coach, on the sidelines, I do believe there were times where we talked people out of not running plays because we had studied them so well that it was like, watch this, watch that. So they was like, oh, you can't run that. They know it's coming. But that's the game within the game in football.
Yeah.
So that was it. But as far as the coaches that I've worked with, in high school at New London, the first coach was Jack. And Jack taught me you can outwork the other guy. You can just work harder. You can study film. You can time everything. Time the snap when you're watching the film, knowing how fast it gets back to the punter. Just everything you can do. And then Jeff Larson came in, and Jeff Larson taught me that you can let your assistant coaches coach. Get good coaches and let them coach. And Dwayne Miranda came in, and it was like, and actually, I'm sorry, Bob Brackett was there one year, and Bob Brackett probably taught me the greatest thing is that you can be a gentleman. Bob Brackett's a good friend of mine still to this day, and he came in, and it's just like, you can be a gentleman, you can coach this game, you don't have to swear at anybody, you don't have to do any of that. He just was good people. And then, as I said, Dwayne Miranda came in, he was the last head coach before I became the head coach. And, he was a technician. He studied the game. He wanted to know every little thing about it. So, there's not things that you agree with any of those coaches all the time. And there were things that I wouldn't want to emulate, but those are the things I learned from them. You can outwork your opponent. You can be a gentleman. You can trust your assistants, and you can learn the game. You can learn, okay, yes, you're trying to come up with a defense. And I see this all the time. You come up with a defense because you see an offensive formation, but you don't know what they want to do. And if you don't really know what they want to do, and especially like the double wing, I'll give you an example. People see the double wing, they line up all these guys in the line of scrimmage. All they want to do is block down, kick, and they want to run off tackle. So you know what? Oh, that's what they want to do. I put a guy in a tilt, run right through the guy's face mask, kills the whole play. One guy kills the whole play. And now he has to, I'm about to start talking football, but it's things like that. So those are the things I learned from guys that I coached with as an assistant. And then I learned so much from my own offensive coordinator, Arnie Delio. The guy was just a football coach, and he went about things, he learned a lot from Jack. So he had some of those, characteristics that aren't fan friendly as far as, yelling and stuff like that. But the guy knew the game and he knew it so well. And again, he would come from New Britain every day, come to practice. On Friday night after a game, he would sleep at my house, break down film all day Saturday, put a game plan in. I mean, just dedicated really to his craft. A guy who I really felt should have been a head coach somewhere. And, it didn't ever happen for him, but he's just a great coach. So you keep learning.
Well, that's important, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things you were saying about the defensive guys standing up, and I played offensive guard. For an offensive lineman, relatively small, topped out at 180 as a senior, but still managed to move bigger guys because they'd stand up.
Right.
And you just stay low and keep your legs going, keep your head up. I don't mean up like this, but
right.
And you can do the job.
Yeah, Mrs. Roman. She knows low man wins. My wife knows that. I started dating her when I got back from free agent camp. She was going to summer school at Central. I had just graduated. Was about to start graduate school, and we met. And I was just coming off playing, hoping to keep playing. So I was still in that kind of animal type mindset. And she learned like low man wins, and all these little things, your power angles. If we drop something at our house, we both go fumble, So she knows those things, and I mean, it stays with you. But the teammate thing, the camaraderie thing, if you play, a few years, and you really take it in. I had my high school 40th reunion last summer, and the guys from the team, whether they were starters or not, it was just great to see each other. As I said, we watched some of the games on the DVD in the auditorium at the high school. It was an unbelievable time. And, and it's great too. I think my kids couldn't believe that. They were like, what is this? Because it was in black and white. They were like, what happened to the color? I was like, I didn't even think about it. Like, oh yeah, They didn't always have that, guys.
You know, one thing, and it may just be anecdotal, but, you know, we've mentioned guys like Coach Bunicor and Vargas, who coached a long time.
Yeah.
A guy like Mignault over in Ledyard, and there are others in the region who, Bob Weiss, after coaching London, he still coached at the college level and came back to Fitch and coached. And it seems as if of that generation, coaching for decades, I won't say it was the norm, but it seemed to be more frequent than you see today. You'll see guys coach for 2 or 3 years and they're out.
Right.
And why is that?
I think one big thing is the seasons don't end. And I think that because of that, it's easy for coaches to get burnt out. I know I coached for 13 seasons. And quite honestly, if my kids weren't playing college football, I'd probably still be coaching. But once I got out, then it was like, oh, okay, I can go to the beach with my wife. I can go see my daughter at her school. I missed all of my daughter's AAU stuff because I was doing summer weightlifting, you know, and stuff like that. But I really believe that before it was like, okay, this is the season. And it's not a knock on that generation of coaches, but I saw you in August, and then whenever the season ended, whether it was Thanksgiving or the state championship game, and then I didn't really have a lot of contact with you after that. I'd see you in school if you were a teacher, but it was like, hey, coach, that's it. Now, I know when I coached, January 2nd, weightlifting starts. And we're going to lift all the way through until June. June, we're going to go to Camp at Central, that's where I went when I was coaching. We went to Camp at Central for a week. And then you come back and you're still lifting, and you have your passing leagues on Tuesdays or Wednesday nights. And then all of a sudden the season starts. But even when you're doing the weightlifting, you're doing now, in the summertime, we're running 110s. So, you know, so we had a 6 o'clock lift for kids who had summer school or had jobs. And then we had a 10 o'clock lift. Marty, we've had beach rights for 23 years, and I've gone to the beach one of those years, and that was last year, where I said, I'm going to go to the beach because my wife would go, but after 6 o'clock lift, the 10 o'clock lift, I'd come home and be like, oh, I'm done. So I think a lot of that is it's a year-round job now. And, you know, and with the passing leagues and everything else, and now people are traveling everywhere. It's a lot going on. So you do that, and all of a sudden you're like looking at your family, and especially, I mean, and I'm not trying to belittle, but you're not getting paid. I don't care how much you're getting paid, you're not getting paid. And I don't know what they're doing in the Gold Coast. I don't know what, you know, Darien and all those guys getting paid, but you're not getting paid too much around here. So you're doing it because you want to do it. So if you're doing all that and now you're going to put, you know, the criticisms, I think coaching and teaching are very similar, but the only difference is there's no one in the classroom watching you. The parents aren't in the classroom watching you. Whereas they watch practice now, they're at the games.
But the teachers are getting paid. You just mentioned the coaches are not.
But, you know, they're not always getting paid as well as they should be, but that's a different story. But, you know.
Paid better than the coaches.
Much better. But, you know, you're looking at that and you go, wait a minute, man. You know, I'm getting paid, you know, not a great amount. I'm doing this 12 months a year, basically. And now I've got, you know, some parent sitting out there, and I'm not knocking parents. I understand they all want what's best for their kids, but sometimes they don't know. I had one parent that always tell me, I don't know much about football, but then he would tell me what I should do. and it was just like, you know, and his kid ended up being a great player for us, but the kid was going to be a great player anyways. You know, like, just let him be what he is. And so I think that's a big answer to the question, is that it just doesn't stop. And if it doesn't stop, you're not feeling a whole lot of, you know, reciprocation, it can be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed in the paper very recently that New London's coach Sanchez has stepped aside.
Right.
So we've got a vacancy at that level. So you're looking to get back into it?
Oh, I am not looking to get back into it. Especially as a head coach.
That's after 2 years, New London anyway. I don't know how
Yeah,
long he's
yeah.
coached other places.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, as I said, my wife and I can go on vacation whenever we want now. We're going on vacation Friday. Whereas, and I know it sounds crazy, but if I were still coaching, I would be like, okay, you got to do this, got to find someone. I would take a week off every July because I work a camp at my church, and I would have to be, okay, you leave your assistants, make sure they run this many 110s, make sure they do this and that. And if anything goes wrong, you know, it's still coming back to you. And it just was so like, ugh. It's a lot going on. And even when Hunter first went to school, you know, I was still here and coaching, but it was like, okay, Tommy and I would get in my car. I would do 90 miles an hour down 95 to get to the Yale games. And then, boom, you watch the game. Okay, everybody else is eating, hanging out, especially after a big win. Everybody's tailgating. I had to get in the car, fly back to watch film because I have a coach's meeting the next day. And if you're the head coach, you better know what you're talking about. And there were a couple of times where it was like I really wasn't where I want to be in film breakdown, and it's not fun. And as I said, you know, like coaching and teaching are very similar because teachers can't be or shouldn't be in class not prepared. Kids are going to see through you. Coaches shouldn't be on the field not prepared. Kids are going to see through you. And that's a big thing. You know, coaches have to learn how to be coaches, have to learn how the hierarchy works. And I don't mean that in the way of I'm better than you. But like, hey, head coach, coordinator, assistants. This assistant might have a great idea. Tell the coordinator. You know, and hopefully it'll work its way up. I know one of our bigger wins when I was coaching with Dwayne Miranda, we beat Middletown. When they had Highsmith and he was the Gatorade Player of the Year, they're up 14-0 on us, and it's looking bad. They're undefeated. We had a couple losses, couldn't afford to lose anymore to make the playoffs. And Brett Maynard, defensive line coach, first year coaching, comes up to me and says, Coach, they're not going to throw the ball. Why don't we put another lineman in the game? You know, I'm sitting here thinking about, you know, all the stuff I'm trying to go through, what adjustment we're going to make. I was like, all right, put him in, boom, we come back, we win the game. And I made sure at the end of that game that I acknowledged him. I wanted them to know, don't say, oh, Coach Roman, great adjustment. Hey, Coach Maynard, great adjustment. But a lot of people won't do that, and that's unfortunate. You know, you should be able to understand this is how the hierarchy works. If the head coach says we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Hopefully, he'll be open to suggestions. So hopefully, it won't have to be on the fly in the middle of a game. But whatever it is, we're all trying to be on the same page. But again, you've got to trust who you've hired. And, you know, and those things happen. I mean, I think, you know, the greatest compliment I ever got from Jack was when I said something I saw in film against NFA. I said, we need to blitz off this corner, and we had Richie Vitale, who could run like a daggone deer. So, situation comes up, boom, sack. Jack came over and just gave me a little dab. And that was it. Didn't say a word, but it was like, okay. Because I know he was waiting for that not to work so he could be like, what the hell am I listening to you for? But, you know, those are the type of things that you do and you try to get better at it each and every day. And I think if you can do those things, coaching can be a lot of fun. One thing I don't miss also is just the pettiness that comes with coaching. And I had been caught up in that at times myself of like, I don't like this guy or I don't. And it's like, you know what? We're coaching football. You know, really? But it's amazing. And that's the one thing I hope that any coach that I ever coached against will know is that if you had a player that could play and a college coach came to London High School, I was going to tell them about your players too. You know, I wasn't going to be just my guys. You know, and I think that's important because in the end, this sport can help kids get ahead. It helped me. I wouldn't have gone to college if I didn't play football. So It's important.
Yeah. Just a little bit of a change of pace here. Now, your two sons played at Yale, so they're playing Ivy League ball, which I happen to enjoy immensely. Now, the Ivy League has recently made a change which will go into effect this season, where they're going to allow the champion of the league to participate in postseason. What kind of an effect do you think that's going to have on the Ivies in recruiting and the quality of play?
Well, interestingly enough, I was just talking about this earlier. I think a few things are going to happen. Hunter's junior year, Major's freshman year, they won the Ivy League championship. And they came home for Thanksgiving, and we were watching the 1AA playoffs on TV. And I was like, man, you guys could be playing still. Hunter looked at me and said, there's no way I'd want to be playing football and going through finals right now. Because the Ivy League is not catering to the athlete. They will say, okay, athlete, you got in because you're an athlete, but you're an athlete with straight A's. You're an athlete with great SATs. You're still having to do other things, but yeah, you're an athlete. Hunter's freshman year, he traveled to Maine. You know, they broke it up in, I think, the 2 days, whatever they did. They stopped at a nice hotel and all that stuff. But he had to do his paper, and it had to be turned in while he was still traveling. It wasn't like, wait till you get back, have a good game, you know? So I think that part of being in the playoffs is going to be daunting for the athlete. I think as far as being able to recruit, now you can say, hey, we can also play in the playoffs. And you're going to get an Ivy League education too. And what I was discussing earlier was the fact that, you know what? If the Ivy League decides they're going to really get involved in NIL, no one can touch them. If they say we're going to give kid X amount of dollars, who can keep up with them? Their endowments alone are ridiculous. So if they turn around and say, hey, we're going to make sure that your starting offensive line is all getting $1 million. It sounds far-fetched, but it's happening. And it's not a coincidence that the team that won the national championship in football last year, Ohio State, had the biggest NIL salary.
The best the $25 million could buy.
There you go.
I think I read that.
So I think recruiting, that would be a big thing. NIL would be a big thing. I think they can play. I think the one thing they would lack maybe, but again, this might change because of their being in the postseason, but they don't maybe have some of the depth. You know, because before you had 4 years to play. You couldn't redshirt. I assume you still can't redshirt there. So you're not going to have this fifth-year guy. The only time you had a fifth-year guy was because they got injured and they could come back. So if you got 4 years to play 4, not 5 to play 4, that is a big difference. But now, are they going to start taking transfers in? Because we see what the transfer portal is doing to people. So now, if you're bringing in transfers,
you're reading my notes. You went into the NIL and now the portal. And,
well, I'm saying because now if you're bringing the portal in, now you're saying, okay, hey, 17 like Mage. Mage was 6'5", 215 when he graduated from high school. When he graduated from college, he was 6'5", 255. You know, but now it's like, why bring this 6'5", 215 kid in when I can bring in a transfer who's 6'5", 255 already? There's none of that working guys on and all that. And I mean, we see that. I mean, people can turn around their programs very quickly with that. So and I don't know because I haven't followed them since my kids are out, but if the Ivy League is going to allow transfers in as well and they get involved in the NIL, they could literally flip the power of the 1AA level of football.
Yeah. Well, I know in basketball, the Yale basketball, they had a 7-footer who transferred to Michigan, played Michigan this year. Wolf, his name was.
Yeah. And again, I don't know anything about his NIL situation, but who leaves Yale? But now, if I'm going to go to Michigan, a great school, but I'm going to go to Michigan and you're going to give me money, I get to play at a higher level, I get a Michigan degree, which is a great degree, and I got paid.
And he may have his eye on the pros too.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, look and again, I mean, obviously the WNBA is up and coming. It's very popular now. But you see these girls who are saying, I'm going to stay in college another year.
Make more money with NIL than they do with the salary.
And again, because there's no restrictions. I can give you as much money as I want to give you. That says a lot.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to touch on that, and that is the ongoing controversy of men or trans playing in women's sports. In that, I find it repugnant at a personal level, and it should not be allowed at any level.
Right.
And I was thinking that if it was in a state tournament game, I believe at the casino, where your daughter got clobbered, and this is a girls' game.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, now what happens if this was a 6'5" guy whose elbow went through her face?
Right, right. Probably would have been a riot. But
well, you get my drift.
Yeah.
I mean, it just.
But you know, honestly, I'm going to say this as calmly as I can say it. I want to say it succinctly, but I don't understand how anyone can support letting someone who is a male physically compete against a female. Now, I understand that maybe some females will say, hey, I'm not afraid, I'll take the challenge, I can do anything that a man can do. Okay, fine. And some people say, well, they identify as such. Fine. You can identify however you want to. You can go by whatever name you want to go by. But if I put on a wig right now and I punch a woman in the face in a boxing match, she's going to know I hit her. She's going to know a man punched her. There's no need for that. It's ridiculous. And it amazes me because women, you think, would say, we want females to do the best they can. Females who are coming in second or third to these transgender athletes, how's that fair to them? That might be the only chance you're going to be a state champ. That might be the only time that you win a state championship. And you shouldn't have to lose this because of this. And for me, I'm sure there's going to be someone out there who hates me for saying it, who says I'm whatever phobic they want me to be. I just don't get how they can allow that disparity. You know, I mean, Shohei Ohtani is not going to play professional softball. He's not going to do that. He doesn't want to do it. And if he did it, what's he going to do?
It's ironic because it doesn't work the other way. And beyond athletics, I mean, I also, you know, you look at the privacy issues of, it's a bigger issue than just on the ball field.
Well, you know, that issue in itself, I mean, there are other ways of working around it. We had girls on our football team, and they're part of our team, and love them to death, but they weren't playing. They were on the team, they came to practice. I can think of 3 young ladies that played for us. They didn't play varsity meaningful minutes. And when they did get out there, we made sure we put them out there in a situation where they'd be pretty safe. You know, and it's funny because when you go to your coaching certifications, one of the things you have to do is make sure you don't put a mismatch situation. You don't put a 6'5", 300-pound kid against a 5'8", 120-pound kid. You wouldn't do that, even if they're both males. It's not fair. So why would you do that to a young lady? Why would you put her in a situation where she's going to get hurt? And as a coach, I wouldn't do it. You know, just and anybody who played under my head coaching reign knows we had one kid who was notorious for laying out the girl on our team if the opportunity arose itself. And you know what? And I give her credit. She jumped up every time, but it was BS that he did it. And he heard about it.
Very good. You know, there's so much more I wish we had time to chat about. We'll have to have you come back in here. And
you got to have more interesting people than me to come in here.
But we'll bring Juan back here sometime soon, I hope. we got a community center going to be opening up pretty soon here in London, a little something on the local level. And one thing I need to do before we close up tonight is just give a plug for the New London Republicans' 3rd annual Lincoln Day Barbecue Bash. This will be at the Barn in Groton, the 17th of April. Music by Bootleg Harmony, and it's $50 per person. Includes a barbecue dinner, entertainment, and a cash bar. So if you're interested, you can give me a buzz. Give Gina Phillips, Northeast Paving, John Martin, our chair, and it's a good time. Raise a few bucks and schmooze with some friends and make some new friends and say hello to old friends. And
Marty, one thing you mentioned, the community center. That's been a big topic in town of the naming of it, and I know that Tommy Major is the person that I can think of that should have his name on that community center. And I don't know many others who would disagree, who've actually looked at the time put in, the effort put in, sacrifices that are made. As I said, about coaching, there's a lot of sacrifices. Well, imagine being a coach for 33 years and also being the head of recreation for 30 plus years.
Well, he was the first guy out, and he'd be the guy turning the lights off and locking up the...
Yeah, it's crazy. But hopefully those things will work themselves out. Trusting that they will work out in his favor.
I would concur. He's a top shelf guy.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we're going to say goodnight. Folks, we'll be back next week with City Focus. I've got John Martin coming in to discuss politics. And the week after, Tony D'Angelo will discuss, I would assume, state and federal politics and economics and taxes and stuff of that ilk. So tune in to City Focus, and Juan, as always, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, folks. We'll see you next week.